Hello, I am Disha Karya from MA Semester 4, Department of English, Dr. Kavi Narsi Mehta University, Junagadh. This is my presentation for paper C116 Indian Poetics, and my topic is the process of Rasa Nispatti. Bharat was the first to discuss the concept of Ras. He has discussed Ras in chapter number 6, 7, 15 and 16 of his magnum opus Nati Shastra. It is an Indian concept of aesthetic flavor, an essential component of any work of visual, auditory or literary art that can only be suggested or experienced, not described. In other words, Ras is the aesthetic feeling that is created in the reader or spectator when he or she witnesses an effective presentation of art. Bharat has given the Rasa Sutra, that is Vibhavanubhav Vyabhikari Sanyogad Rasa Nispatti. It means Ras is accomplished when, as a result of the conjunction of Vibhav, Anubhav and Vyabhikari Bhav. In other words, or in simple language, one can say that Vibhav, Anubhav and Vyabhikari Bhav appeals to the Sthayi Bhav which is already there in all human beings according to Bharat, leads to the Ras experience. So Vibhav, Anubhav and Vyabhichari Bhav, mixture of these three appeals to the Sthayi Bhav which leads to the Ras experience. This is the psychological analysis of Ras realization. That is, there are 4 steps. First is melting of mind. Second one is expansion of mind. Third stage is enlightenment of mind. And fourth one is bliss, similar to Brahmanand. That is aesthetic pleasure that we can say the Ras. In a way, this resembles the process of Ras realization, as when we read any text, any reader read any text, indulge in it. That is the melting of mind, our involvement in the text. Then we start thinking about it, try to connect it with our lives, our own experiences. That is expansion of mind. Then we gain or learn something, get knowledge or moral. That is enlightenment, and the pleasure we get at the end, which we cannot express in words. That is bliss, Brahmanand, which Bharat calls Ras. This is the process of Ras realization on the part of reader as well as on the part of writer or a poet. The same is true with the poet. Now, the stages of Ras Nispatti, these are the 5 stages widely accepted by many scholars. The first stage is the level of senses. The second is the level of imagination. The third one is the emotional level. The fourth one is Ras experience. And the fifth one is Sadharanikaran. Now let us understand the 5 stages. At first, the poet observes the world through his 5 senses, that is eye, tongue, skin, nose and ear. He sees, smells, touches, hears or tastes something. He perceives the world as per his own ideology, his likings or dislikings. Then, when a poet feels or observes the world through his 5 senses, it leads him to imagine something extraordinary. For example, looking at simple flower like daffodils, we would just like to see the beauty of that flower, but the imagination of words leads him to create such a poetry like daffodils. So he thinks something like extraordinary and adds his imagination, the poet. Then the poet does not just observe the world, add the imagination and create or write the poetry. At the third stage, poet adds his own emotions to his imagination and then composes the poetry. So on a fourth stage, when a reader reads the poem, he also feels the same which the poet felt earlier. Reader also goes through the same process and realizes the rasa. The fifth or last stage is Sadharanikaran. It means what poet feels is not his only feeling or experience, but many other people might have experienced the same. The difference is that the poet creates poems others do not. So let's try to understand the process of rasa realization through an example of a poem, that is the Chimney Sweeper, written by William Blake. The poem is a little black thing among the snow, crying whip, whip in notes of woe. Where are thy father and mother? Say, they are both gone up to church to pray. Because I was happy upon the heath, and smiled among the writer's winter snow. They clothed me in the clothes of death, and taught me to sing the notes of woe. And because I am happy and dance and sing, they think they have done me no injury, and are gone to praise God and his priest and king, who make up a heaven of our misery. So there are five stages of rasa realization in this poem. We are going to discuss. The first stage is, we can say, the level of senses. Means the poet sees the reality. He feels the reality of life. That is the exploitation of children in the industrial society. The second thing is the level of imagination. See the imagination of William Blake. That a little black thing among the snow, crying, whip, whip, in notes of woe, means he is trying to indicate a dirty boy as a black thing. So it is his imagination. Then he connects his emotion to it. He has a feeling of pity for such children who are exploited in industries. So he adds his emotions to the poetry. He asks to the boy that where his parents are. Then the ras, which ras nispatti, that is the Rasa Nispatti of Karuna Ras, because he has the pity, and in such a condition one will definitely experience the Karun Ras. And if the reader will read such poetry and try to understand the poetry, then he or she might experience the same, that is the Karun Ras. And Sadharanikaran or generalization is what that exploitation of poor people and children in the world. It is not just first incident or the only incident that poet has seen, but it is his imagination and emotions which he adds to the beauty of poetry, and he has created the poetry. So it is not particular experience, it is the common experience. And when we read such poetry, we also realize that we have seen such exploited children too. So this is the sadharanikaran. So this was the entire process of ras realization in five stages. Earlier we have discussed the Rasa Sutra as well as the psychological process of ras realization. So these three kind of process we have discussed. Thank you. This is the works cited. Thank you.